the front end. I did find my ball link joints, connectors. They were hanging right on the wall, right in front of plain sight. If I was any blinder, I could be a politician. And this is what I'm using for brass tubing for my steering. This is about 9/64. That's what's good about having these circle templates. Size that up in the hole. It says it's 9/32, but you go to my drill index. If I get a 9/32 drill, it's a little sloppy. So you want to go to the next size up drill. So if it fits in that hole, that's what I want to use. Now, as in the previous video, I showed you how I was bending these up to make my 90s. But because I don't have any more of that thicker half-inch brass stuck, I had to use the 3/4. And I just marked that up. This is much thinner. Marked that up, drilled my hole, bend it, just like I showed you in the last video. As I'm cutting this, I'm cutting to the outside of my line because I put it on the sander. I'm going to shave it right down to the line. And can't express how strongly you gotta wear some kind of eye protection. There we go. Gotta wear something. Cut. Now, as I cut and trim my brass tubing, it's nice to have some jeweler files around because you're gonna have flashing inside, so you want to clean that up. And then the flat side, clean that up. And then again, you want to clean up dirt and crud and whatever on here. Preparation for soldering. Now you can see my holes. I drilled this free-handedly instead of using my drill press, so you can see it's a little out of whack. And I've already soldered up the opposite end, so hold my triangle. You can see just how crooked that is. So we can straighten that out. And we're getting close. Oops. And you can see that's pretty well, give me just a tad more. That's pretty close right there. Now it's going to have a little slop, being this bolt's going to go through my other piece of tubing. So I'll go ahead and I'll solder that up. I was kind of jumping the gun a little bit here. I need to set up a mounting plate where it's going to fit inside the fuselage. That's what this plate here is. I have my center line, vertical and horizontal. You want this brass tubing here to line straight across the horizontal line. And I'm still using the triangle. And this takes a little time preparation, but make sure that's straight up and down. This is my soldered side. I haven't soldered the other side yet because it's a little difficult to do that and get that mounting plate on. So this is the proper way. Get this on first. And we'll go ahead and we'll solder up this mounting plate. I've also drilled 2 holes in it. I used the same drill, the 9/32 drill. What that's going to do is mount on a plate inside the fuselage, and I'm going to generously coat that with epoxy. And epoxy will come up through those holes and it'll coat the top also. And I scrubbed up both sides. The side I'm going to solder and the side that I'm going to glue down. Give the glue something neat to bite on. Okay, we have to set up now. I'm using a block to hold some pressure on that mounting plate. And you can see right in here, I've recessed the main axle tube through this piece, the U piece here. And that's going to give me a stronger soldering joint rather than just butting that tube up against the flat side of that plate. I've been having problems with Ice Racer number 1 cracking and breaking off, so Ice Racer number 2 was done the same way. We're doing 3 the same way. And again, use my triangle, make sure that bolt is straight up and down. I don't care what this is at right now, the holes are off center, so we'll just line that bolt up straight up and down. That's what I'm after. Now I can go ahead and solder this side up. Alright, now I'm getting ready to set up my actual steering of my runner. And You can see what I have here. I'm using that short piece of tubing. Got everything up pretty much in the center. Doesn't have to be exactly exact, but as close as you can get it. And use your little triangle to try and get this set up as a 90. It's coming off of the main piece to the 90. This little piece here is what your tie rod ends are going to connect to. I still need to drill holes in that, but I could do that later because I'm not sure at this point exactly where they're going to come out of the fuselage to line up good with this. But we can go ahead and solder that up. Now you also got to remember, you got to make a left and a right. So if I went and soldered this up right now, it's not going to be any good. We're going to need just the opposite. So you got to remember, you got to make a left and a right. Okay, I found a more better way of doing this. Propping everything up, holding the end of it with a clothespin, getting that, looks like pretty close to a 90. So we can adjust that with my tie rod ends. Or when we're getting ready, we can just heat it up a little bit, soften up the solder and move it. No big deal. Okay, there you have it. All set up, all ready to go in. They turn nice and free. And I believe these were 3/32 screw bolts, whatever you want to call them. And for nuts, I'm using the Nylock. It's a nut, it's got a little bit of nylon inside, or plastic, whatever you want to call it. It keeps them tight, it keeps them from backing off. And this little excess, I can leave it there, or we can shave that down. I'm setting up my front end and the framework here for the brass tubing front end. And the way I got this construction, this is a little different from the last two, but my two lower hardwood pieces are coming together with the keel portion of it coming straight up, almost like a big T. So I had to make some hardwood blocks and a 5-minute epoxy those in place. Now I have this looks like 1/8 plywood. Gonna sit in there like so. We'll epoxy that, and then my front end will get attached to that point with generous amounts of epoxy. Alright folks, I got to apologize to you. I had a major brain fart putting this front end together, and as you can see, I forgot to attach my front spoilers. So instead of going and boring you with all the formalities, I'll just explain what I did. I had to unsolder one end of this and my plate, and this is our aluminum strut material. It's hollow, and I scruffed up the tubing with sandpaper. Got my strut material on there, then mixed up some 5-minute epoxy, and just off the end of my stick let it drip down inside, get enough in there to get it accumulated. And then when I attach the second side, I use my straight edge. After this side is cured, take my straight edge and I'll line up the two trailing edges, and this becomes my front spoiler. And you want to make sure you got the leading edge, the thicker end of it, facing forward. And these tie rod ends, they'll face the rear of the machine. So, had to repeat steps 1 through 20 and get it right. And that's what happens when you get old, your brain fart. Okay, my first trial fit, and I did another major brain fart. This mounting bracket plate was supposed to face that direction. Again, brain farting. I'm just get so excited building these things. I put my struts on backwards, but we can work around that. And what happened with this, it's not exactly flat. So it was kind of tipped, not that much, but you get the idea. So I just gingerly sanded it with my little drum sander. Get that to lay flat. And